Hi, Alan.
Hi, good evening. So
You,
we start from the Mishnah, Kuf Aleph Omid Beis. We start from the new Mishnah, new parak, right?
the Mishnah.
101B, 3.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's going to talk about a husband agreed to provide food for his wife's daughters from previous marriage. In other words, his stepdaughter, who, if it's his stepdaughter. So when he married this woman, he says, I agreed. He says, if Hanose is Isha, Upaska Imo, Kadesha Zospito Chameshonim. He agreed to provide food for his stepdaughter for 5 years. He's obligated to feed her for 5 years. If he divorced her and she marries another man, and she stipulates with the new husband that he will feed her daughter for 5 years, the first husband remained obligated to feed the girl for 5 years. So the obligation assumed by the new husband does not negate the obligation of the first husband. So Lo Yomar Harisha, the first one may not say to the second husband, when she comes for me, I will feed her. But rather he must bring the girl's food to her in a place where the mother lives. And the two of them, the two husbands not say, we will fight her as one. We'll divide the cost of her food between us. When one provides her with food, so one gives her the worth of food. Each one then must supply the girl with full food support. It's interesting, yeah. So she doubles,
The girl gets either gets fat or gets money.
Right. Right. If the girl gets nieces, if she gets married, Abal nosin lo bezonos. The husband provides her the food. The hey nosin lo demei bezonos, and they, the stepfathers, give her worth of food and money. Basically, if the stepfather died, the property fell to the heirs.
Hi, Alan. How can you? Those kids of yours.
Oh, actually, could you kids be quiet? Thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. I got a house full. I got six little ones, six little ones here in the house. So Tuesday they're going back to Israel. It's okay. They're wonderful. I believe you. I'm immune to this. I don't hear that anymore. So it's it's okay. I'm sorry, but.
No. I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Now, so we say that if the girl gets married, her husband feeds her, and the other stepfathers have to, since they promised to feed her for 5 years, they have to give her a worth of food of money. In other words, they give her a stipend of a certain amount of money. If the stepfathers died, they're probably fell to the heirs. Their own daughters are fed from an unencumbered property. But the stepdaughters are fed with encumbered property because she's like a creditor. So creditor gets from. So in other words, and later on the Gemara will say the difference why his own daughters don't get from encumbered properties, but the stepdaughters do, because it's only. Let's see. It's because it's like a bachol, but the daughters are a derisa. I mean, the Chachame made that Gezerah that he has to feed his daughters with encumbered property, and the other ones, she's like. I mean, this other one, his own daughters get from unencumbered property, but the stepdaughters get from encumbered property. So the Mishnah deals the way in which the foregoing obligation must be avoided. The clever ones write the following when they undertake this commitment to give her 5 years. We marry on the condition I'll feed your daughters for 5 years. Calls munch shot even as long as you remain with me. This stipulation allows him to discontinue support once the marriage comes to an end, whether it ends with his death, her death, or through divorce. In other words, it's not. It's a deal, a condition they made between each other. The Chachomim don't have, the Bezdin doesn't have any kind of control over that. It's something that he wanted to marry this girl. She was a beautiful girl, but she says, I'll only do it on condition that you support my daughters, which means they're not related to him. So he goes back and forth. He says, I'll do it as long as you stay with me. But if you die or if I die, it's not a good deal. And he can make
divorce.
Or divorce, right? Yeah. So, if he says to his friend, $100. Rabbi Yochanan says he's liable to pay. Rish Lakish says, Amar Pater. So the Gemara says, why? Why was it? Does he not have to pay? The Hechad we're talking about, if that's where he said in front of people and around him, you are my witnesses, I admitting to this debt. My time adore Shlakish to Pater. Why does he Lakish say that? What is Rabbi Shlakish's reason that they're exempt from paying? After all, people are witnesses around there. Surely Rabbi Lasha agrees that one who admits a debt before witnesses is liable to pay. And if he is where he, and if it is where he did not say to the bystanders, Atem, you are my witnesses that I'm admitting to this debt, that I'm admitting this, then my time Rabbi Yochanan, why Rabbi Yochanan say that he has to pay? There's nobody could corroborate what he said. He might have just said it out of the blue. So Rabbi Yochanan agrees that where no witnesses were designated, he is exempt. So the Olam Lo Kamarlu, actually, it's a case where he didn't say anything to the people that were standing nearby. He did not say, you are my witnesses. I owe you $100 through the unsigned note. In other words, he wrote on his star, but he didn't sign it, or he didn't have anything signed. So Rabbi Yochanan says he is liable. Alima Milsa Dishtora command the very existence of a note, even though it's unsigned, is as if one established indebtedness as admission of one who said to bystanders, you are my witnesses. Rabbi Shlakish says, Pater, lo ilema milsa dishtor. For the existence of an unsigned note is not effective to establish indebtedness. In other words, a star that's not signed is worthless. Because first of all, he himself could have written the star, for the husband, and no sign it, and no signature on it. So there's nothing that makes him liable to pay if there's no witnesses, according to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Shlakish, rather. Rabbi Yochanan says that he is, because it's a star. If there's a star, then it must be, even if it's unsigned, it must be a good star. Especially if he says, I owe you this. Now, Gemara now cites Mishnah as a proof to Rabbi Yochanan that if there's a star, even if it's not signed, he has to pay. Because we learned how no says Isha, Paskalo, Lasli, Espito Chabeshar, and which is his right, because like we learned, if he promises to feed her daughters for 5 years, he's obligated to feed them. Now, if the woman possesses a signed document, it's obvious he must support the girl, and there's no need for Mishnah to say so. So my love, is the Mishnah not speaking a case such as this, where the husband admitted to the debt by handing her an unsigned over for witnesses? Apparently it is. Yet the Mishnah rules that he must pay. This supports the view of Yochanan, that as long as he has a star, even if it's unsigned, so he obligates himself to do it. But he can't renege on it. Okay, next base.
Yeah.
Gemara says no. This is Mishfikin Restore Pesika. The documents of Allah, we set out financial arrangements of a forthcoming marriage. These documents are fully valid and constitute decisive proof of the debt, although it's obvious that the obligate doesn't. The Mishnah states his obligation is to teach it, although the obligation was not ratified with a form of acquisition. It's the Kenyan. In other words, there's no Kenyan involved, just his word. So, in accordance with Gidol, Amarav, Kama Aton. So, the two father-in-law, the two fathers of the bride and one of the bridegroom, they come together and they say, Kama atono se levincha, how much are you giving for your son? And he responds, Kach l'kach, this is so much, I'm giving this amount of money. And the groom's father then asks the bride's father, Kama atono se levincha, how much are you giving for your daughter? And we're making a wedding. We gotta go Egypt, whatever it is. So he says such and such an amount. They stand up and carry out the act of kedushin. They have rendered binding the obligations that accept upon each other, upon himself. And these obligations are things that made legally binding through speech alone. No special act of kinyan is necessary. In the case of our mission, woman possesses positive proof of husband's obligation in the form of document allotment. Here, the proof does not depend on unsigned note handed before a witness. Therefore, the mission ruling is in no way constitutes support of Yochanan's position. So another proof of Yochanan. 1 second. Yeah. Okay. Oshma. Cost of the coin shani chayv lo chamesh sloim. He wrote to Cohen, I'm liable to you for five sloim. The son that one gives a coin gives a coin redeeming the firstborn. So chayv nitains chamesh sloim. He's obligated to pay the coin 5 sloim. Ubano ain poda, and even after he gives the 5 sloim, he's not considered redeemed because a person has to, a pigeon a ben, you have to redeem the firstborn. So the fact that he gave this chamesh shloim does not free him from giving money for a pigeon for the pigeon a ben, because we say the 5 shloim cannot be redemption. Therefore, the boy is not redeemed. So this document applies to something that he owed him money from a previous thing. There's nothing to do with it. Yeah. Okay. So shiny husband is different over there. The mishubad lay the midaraisa. For buy the pigeon aben, it's a deraisa thing. So according to Rish Lakish, the note does not take effect, not because it's a valid mission, but because it embodies the debt that arises from a deraisa to redeem the pigeon, the b'chor. So the existence of the biblical obligation strengthens the document and renders it equivalent to one who signed the witness. So where there were no such obligation, such as Rish Lakish's dispute of Yochanan, the note would not take effect. It emerges that the Mishnah can accord perfectly with Rish Lakish. It can't be advanced as a support of Yochanan. There's a Yochanan who says that a note without a signature is still a good signature, and Rabbi Shaka says a note without a signature is nothing. If that the commit reflects the deraisa, so why did the father write a note? He's obligated to redeem his son even without a document. He wrote a document in order to choose himself a particular coin to whom he will give the 5 shloim. The note was written to ensure that the redemption money would be reserved for this coin. The more I ask that the note embodies his biblical obligation to coin, but no amame ain't important. Why is he not redeemed once the father pays? If a note represents the obligation to redeem the payment, which should affect redemption. In other words, prior to the pigeon aben, the father of the boy wrote a note out that I'm obligated myself to this coin, and the reason he did it, so he specified, because that's one of the things that it's called. It's like there's a cloud took for coin. If a coin comes in and jumps and grabs his portion, so the question is, took Mosino Somiyodo, ain't Mosino. Do we take it from him or don't we take it? It's a big machlokus, and I forgot where it was. It was very famous. So because he's really taken away from the father the right to who the coin he wants to give it to. Yeah. That's what the machlokus is. That's why this coin specifically wrote it, so no other coin would come in and jump and take it. Could ula Domar Ula, Devar Torah Podele Kishitain. So the boy is redeemed when the father gives the money to the coin. That's when the child is pod, is redeemed. My time, Omer Bano Ada pod. What's the reason that Mishnah says the son is not redeemed? So people we may redeem with the debt documents. In other words, we don't want that to happen. That he has to actually give 5 shloim and not something from a previous thing. Let's say he lent a coin 5 shloim and previously, and then he has a note from him, so he cannot use that note to give to the coin to be paid to his son. So that's why we say that why he's not paid with that, because you actually have to give physically. You have to give a new set of money to give to the coin. Did you ever were you ever a pigeon a ben? Did you ever pigeon a ben? So there's a certain coin.
I guess my first grandson.
Oh yeah, your son-in-law's a Kohen.
No. My grandson.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're not right. Yeah, your grandson. Oh.
No, the coin was Barry Grace.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he must have a certain type coins, right? That specific. They use that. So they do. They give it. I guess we're Levium, so we never. I went to my son-in-law's pigeon ben too, but we're Levium, so in our family we never had the pigeon ben because the Kohen Levi himself don't. But with I guess they give it they give it to the Kohen, and then the Kohen redeems it first. So when they give him a certain a value of coins that they use all the time. I guess that's what they do, right? So Barry Gress must have those that he gives it to. Yeah. Okay. Good.
But you know what? Barry gave us a bag of sugar cubes to hold.
Oh. So I heard that. Yeah, that's right. I heard about that.
I don't know what that is for, but we still have it.
Oh,
My
okay.
grandson is 26, but we have it in the freezer for when he gets married.
Okay. So you'll give it to him, yeah. I don't think I'd put that in my coffee, though, right?
I don't know why. I didn't understand what it was for, but
yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Oh, very interesting. Yeah. By the way, did your brother-in-law go back already to Europe?
Yeah, he's home. Yeah, he's home.
He got okay then. He flew okay.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah. Okay, now the Gemara now suggests that the Machlokes to Rabbi Yochanan and Shakis might be the subject of a dispute. The Tanoi, Mobrav Tanoi, Erev Hayotze Echad Chitum Shtoros. A name of a guarantor appears in the debt after the document's signature, and the one name admits it was done with his agreement. The lender can collect from unencumbered properties. For the document was transmitted before witnesses, does thus constitute a valid admission of liability. The lender can collect from unencumbered properties. Omerle Benanis Ainagove, he cannot collect from the lender cannot collect from the guarantor at all. From neither one of them. For an unsigned note, even if transmitted before witnesses, does not constitute a valid admission of liability. So Amar Shmuel, Lama Omar, why does Benanis say, someone considers a creditor was strangling his fellow in the market. So much the Chavera and his friend came along and he said to the creditor, how do you leave? Leave him alone. Putter. He's not liable to pay he doesn't have to pay back, even though he promised he would pay back because he had to save his friend. His friend was a henchman came and was killing him because he probably owed people money. So Shaloa Elamunas Alvoy for it was not on the basis that this guaranteed trust that the creditor initially let the debtor. Since the guarantee came after the loan was made, it does not take effect. So here too, it was written after the law was made. You cannot create a new guarantee. So the Lema Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shmuel, let us say Rabbi Yochanan was like Rabbi Shmuel, said that in accordance with Rabbi Shlomo.
Why is it called, Alan, why is it called guarantee? It's actually, he's making the debt good, He's paying the debt for this third person.
But the third guy that comes along to save his friend, says, I'll pay you. So that's his guarantee. So we say he doesn't because it wasn't done in earnest. The only reason he did it was to save him from being killed. The guy was choking him. I mean, yeah. I have one guy. I think I feel like sending. Actually, he's an Arab guy.
Mhm.
He promised to pay. He's not paying. I feel like sending somebody after him. Applying a guy. Anyhow, I'll leave it at bananas. That none of it's not. No, it's everybody agrees that keep league. Where's the machlokas? I'll leave it to Shmuel, who says that. Like the Gemara will say further, what is the machlokas? Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yochanan, in obvious accord with Rabbi Shmuel, from Yochanan renders liable one who employs an unsigned note to admit a mere debt. Certainly, then he renders liable to one who employs this form to admit to a guarantee. Rabbi Shloka says, Ad kan lom kam Rabbi Shmuel hasam ela d'shayach le'lishibule deraisa. Rabbi Shmuel said the law that a guarantor only because a guarantor is subject to a deraisa, although nothing more than verbal commitment. Rabbi Shmuel holds that a guarantee can be created through verbal commitment alone, can certainly be created through an unsigned note. Accordingly, Rabbi Shmuel then postscript produces a new guarantee. It is for this reason that he rules the guarantee liable. But here in this case, with Rabbi Yochanan, we are dealing with a debtor. Lo shayach shibuda deraisa. It is not subject to a deraisa, so through a verbal commitment. Just as a debt cannot be created through a verbal commitment, it also cannot be created with an unsigned note. Since this note cannot bring a new debt into being, Rabbi Shmuel must agree that one who employs it to admit to a debt is exempt. In other words, there's nothing. It comes after the actual mice of the loan, the debt, the guarantee, the note or whatever it is comes after. It has to be done at the same time in order to be a derisive thing. In other words, if you lend me money, we have to sign the commitment at the same time that you lend me the money. We have to sign the guarantee at that time. If it comes later, it's not effective. In other words, let's say I don't pay you, and so you come and you want me to sign a note over to you. So according to this, it's not as effective. It's not a derisive. It's not a derisive star. So the turns to the ruling of Seder Rav Gidol in the name of Rav. Gufam Rav Gidol Marav. The father of the bride asked the father of the group regarding the financial arrangements. Kama no say levincha. He says kach v'kach. The kama no say levincha. How much you give him for your daughter? Kach v'kach. Amdu v'kitchu. They stand up and they renders binding. Ein advorim anikvoim ba'amira. So these obligations are things made legally through speech alone. No act of kinyan is necessary. I'm just wondering, is that? Let me see if that is without a kinyan.
Yeah, they got up and carry out the kiddushin.
So that is a derisa. I guess it's a derisa obligation, right?
Yeah.
There must be a derisa obligation.
No papers or anything.
No paper, yeah. So even though it's a verbal commitment. It's a commitment, a derisive commitment.
It says no special act of kinyan is necessary.
Right. right. It's like we learned before. If a man makes obligation to pay his stepdaughters for 5 years, it's not written. It's not written. It's a verbal. I think it's a verbal thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, um, okay. So that, yeah. Okay. Now, Rav, Rav explains Rav's ruling. Mishtama Milsadrab Bito Nara. We're talking about a girl who's 12 and a half years old. The Kamote Hanoli Day, because of the monetary benefit goes to his hands. Although the father was performed at no act of kinyan, the benefit he receives creates a binding obligation of him. Of a Bulgaris, but in the case of a girl who's over 12 and a half, Lomote Hanoli Day, there's no benefit for the father, so no benefit comes to his hands. He will not be obligated through speech alone. So in other words, so he would say, you would think he needs a kinyan for that.
Yeah.
So Elohim, by God, but by God I maintain Amarav Afila Bulgaris. He says the Elo Tema. Even a Bulgaris, we say it's a obligation. For if you don't say so, you'll be faced with a difficulty. Avi Abed, according to the father of the boy, is also obligated to fulfill his commitment. My hanoato, what does the monetary benefit have for the boy? What does he get? Because he he's not getting anything. The girl at least gets kesef kedushin, which the father gets. So, but what about the boy? Well, how does he make a kinyan? So Mor says, he hanoah through the pleasure of marrying their children to each other. The fathers wholeheartedly enter a binding agreement with one another. They obligate themselves not because of a tangible benefit, but because of the tangible benefits they receive through marriage and their children. This benefit accrues in the case of Bulgaris also. So even though the father of the boy doesn't receive anything, or the father of the girl either, it goes right to the girl herself. Still, the fact that they have the hanoah they have from marrying each other is enough to make it a binding kinyan. Concerning the financial arrangements of the forthcoming marriage, may they put it in writing, or they don't put it in writing. In other words, should they do it? Do they put it in writing or not? So they may not put it in writing. A verbal agreement recorded a document allotted will not empower one to collect from unencumbered properties, from encumbered properties. Therefore, the rabbis forbade the writing of these documents. They feared that the creditors would wrongfully use them to collect from such properties. So if they make a proposition between each other, they made it in writing, they make a contract with each other, it's they're not allowed to do it, because they would take one of the father-in-laws would take that and try to use it to collect from encumbered properties, not necessarily for the men, but let's say if one father sold his property to a third person, he would use that star to collect from a property that's guaranteed. So they would take it. So therefore, the Chachamim say you're not allowed to make a writing in there. But what is the Tanoim? Isn't the Tanoim a writing? Isn't the Tanoim that shows that? Oh, I don't know. We'll think about that.
No, but in Tanoim there's no monies involved.
The commitments, but they write in writing. It is like a guarantee.
But they commit to get married, but they don't
commit to get married. They commit a certain amount of money that the boy. Yeah, don't you say I'm committing to you a certain amount of money to so that the girl will marry my son. The father, and in fact, all the Tosfos, all the additions they have to Ksuba are obligated. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what this really means, what it's for. And they do write. They write it's a professional contract that they write. In case one of them breaks, let's say the boy breaks up the marriage, he's obligated to pay the girl. Something he's obligated. So I'm not sure what the story is here. Maybe it applies to something else. I mean, maybe for the cost. Maybe we're talking about the cost of the wedding. In other words, why they commit each other to pay for the cost of what the things that go with it to ksuba. That it's not that's could be. I guess it could be in writing. It is, in fact, it is in writing. So they may not. The Chachamim said that you can't put it in writing. Maybe only the cost of the wedding. Maybe that's what it is. So the Moesver, but the clever ones would write the following in the support of their daughters. If a woman they wish to marry, we marry on the kitchen. I will support your daughter for 5 years. As long as you're with me, like we said before. So man kosim, what is meant by the clever ones who they write it, or they say, they would say they did not actually put their condition in writing. They simply said, they just stated them, so they didn't actually write it. The Korale Alamir Kasiva, does the Mishnah then call speaking writing? So and the word says yes. What time we learn, I've neither claim nor argument with your property. He nevertheless consumes the produce during a lifetime. So even though so does he say it verbally or writes it? He says it. One writes to his wife, "Din divorce, so I have neither claim nor argument."
He writes.
He writes. Yeah. So he is. Who says to his wife? As he says, we see this Mishnah refers to speaking as writing. So he does write. So the same practice followed on Mishnah. Okay, so this he does. If he writes something for his wife, that he does put in writing.
But look at in the next sentence, he talked about speaking and writing is interchangeable.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Yeah, it could be either one. Well, that's right. Okay. So now Toshma, ain't kosrin story Erusa with the Suet. We may not write documents of Erusa and the Suet El Midah Shneim. In other words, both parties have to agree to El Midah Shneim Kosim. This implies that with the consent of both, we may write the documents. Now, when the Mishnah mentions documents of Erusa, my love shtor pasika is not referring to documents of allotment, in which we are recording the financial arrangements of a forthcoming marriage. Seemingly, yes, we see that it is permissible to write these documents. Moore says no. Mishnah refers not to documents of allotment, story Erusa mamish, but actually Erusa documents that affect Erusa. And what does he say? One may enter Erusa in one of three ways: through money, through Erusa, and through cohabitation. Erusa document consists of a statement: "You are taking the kedusha to me." The groom hands their document to the bride. They are married. The Gemara in our interpretation Mishnah has discussed the writing of an Erusa document. According to this interpretation, the Mishnah is ruling that this document is valid only if it is written with the consent of both parties, the bride and the groom. So Shtari Erusa Mamish. So Kinapapa, who says the Itmar Kosu Lishmo Shalom Midato, if Erusa was written without without her consent, Rabba Amru Kadeshes, she is married. So they hold that a root stock is valid only if written with the consent of both parties, the groom and the bride. According to Papa, that is the teaching of the Mishnah. So I was just thinking, well, how's it possible that a man can write a document to a woman without her consent, and then we say we're married? How is that possible? I don't know.
It sounds strange to me.
Yeah, it sounds strange. Yeah. The court Rabbi Ravina hold that an Erev document need not be written with the bride's consent. This mission does in fact discuss documents allotment. The emergency court Ravina that mission constitutes proof that it's permissible to write documents of allotment without. Thus, we see disputes of Ashi. The dispute between Papa and Shapir and Rabba is based upon the different interpretation of a certain scriptural exposition. Okay, so maybe it could be maybe
Two
she would
guys
agree.
say she's married.
Yeah, but maybe she agreed verbally, and then he wrote the document without her consent. That might be what they're talking about. Maybe Ravina holds that he could write it as long as she did agree verbally, but she didn't necessarily agree to write it out. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Toshma, we learned if the husband died, their property fell to their heirs. So so their daughters are supported for unencumbered property, their own daughters. But she, the stepdaughter, is supported from encumbered property. So it's property that's guaranteed to her mother, that from her mother, because she's like a creditor, and a creditor collects only from encumbered property. She must perform.
She can go against the buyer, right, of the property.
That the stepdaughter can collect from encumbered property, because that's what the Chachamim made it. So we see that it is permissible to write documents of allotment, even after they're encumbered. Where the case they performed a formal acquisition, a kinyan, to render the commitments binding. The reason the stepdaughter may collect from encumbered property is because a kinyan was performed. A verbal agreement with a kinyan, without a kinyan, is even if recorded in a document, would not empower the girl to collect from these properties. Thus, the Mishnah poses no difficulty for Ravashi. The Gemara questions this interpretation of our Mishnah. If so, the Mishnah discusses husbands who rendered their commitments to this woman binding with a kinyan, but no snami, so their own daughters too should be permitted to collect from encumbered properties. The kinyan should provide them with the same rights it provides the stepdaughters. The Gemara says no. Is where they performed the acquisition only for the stepdaughters. Velokana Luzuba did not perform acquisition for their own daughters. Since the father's obligation to his daughter was not backed by kinyan, she may not collect her support from encumbered property. So the more objection of my pasuk, what is the generalization? That the support of a daughter is made binding, while the kinyan support a daughter is not. That perhaps a father would include support of his daughter in the kinyan he makes with his wife. So faced with this argument, the Gemara concede that support of his own daughter might have also been included in the husband's active kinyan. Nevertheless, the daughter, unlike the stepdaughter, may not collect from the encumbered property. Why? The Gemara says the case of the stepdaughter, the Hava B'Shas kinyan, since she was alive at the time of the acquisition, was performed Mahalei Kinyan. The acquisition is effective for her. But his own daughters, Dolo Hava B'Shas kinyan, they were not born at the time of his acquisition, was performed prior to the parents' marriage. Lo Mahalei, the act of acquisition is not affected to them. In other words, we see that the stepdaughters, obviously they were alive when their mother died or he died. They were alive already because this was the second woman's second marriage. He had the daughters from a previous marriage, so they were obviously alive and they could make a kinyan. But his own daughters couldn't make a kinyan when he married his wife. They weren't born yet. So we cannot accept the dealings with the daughters of Ishas Kinyan who were already born at the time of the act of acquisition before. How is it possible? Go negotiate case where he divorced his wife after the daughters were born, and then he took her back. So at the time of the remarriage, both the stepdaughter and the daughters had already been born. So the Kinyan should apply to both of them. So more elegant. What's the difference? The difference between the daughters and the stepdaughters. In the case of the stepdaughters, the list of Matane Bezin, she is not being supported by stipulation of the court. Mahanile Kenya, the act of acquisition is effective for her. Our Benos, his own daughters, the Isnayo Benai Bezin, since they are entitled to support by stipulation of the court, Lo Mahanile Kenya, an act of acquisition is not effective for them. So Migrura, so it means that the daughters are weakened because they're ordered by the court. Their support comes through the commission of the court. If anything, the court decree should strengthen their rights. So Morris says, Ella Benosov, Hainu time of the reason the daughters cannot get payment from the acquired property, given this new Betnai Bez, since they're entitled to support by the court, a marriage is Spacino. You can say the father had secretly give them bundles of coins. So we're afraid that maybe he gave them money for support before he died. To the stepdaughters, he would give it to them, but his own daughters, he would give it to them. And therefore we say that they can't collect from B'chasim Mishabarim. So the first one, we said about the two husbands, we don't want to, they want to give up their responsibility to support if she marries another man. So the first one may not say when she comes to me, I'll feed her. Rather, you must feed the food to her and in the place where her mother lives. The more he draws inference from the words of the place. So Samaris, Bas Eid Salimo, this affects saying that where the minor adult is with her mother. If the heir is to her father's demand that she reduce the cost of her upkeep and come to live with them, she may insist upon her mating with her. So the more it's in, because we see the what are we dealing with an adult daughter? Also deal with perhaps we're dealing with a minor daughter who must be placed in her mother's protective custody. Listen, this is terrible, because unpleasant occurrence that once took place in an orphan minor entrusted in the care of the heirs. The Tanya was talking, if one died and left the minor son to the care of the mother, the wife of the deceased, or maybe the father heirs say, let him be with us, let us raise him. Let my son be raised by me. So we leave him by the mother. We don't give him by anyone else to fit to raise him if the mother is alive. So Maisa Hoya Shchoto Er Arishon, that what happened was that the heirs decided they wanted to raise the boy, and what did they do? The first day that he came into them, they killed him, they butchered him in the first evening of the day. So him Cain listened to Mokal, hey, let the mission teach that the husband must bring the stepdaughter food in the place she's in. What is meant by the place her mother lives? Shama Smine by Eitzelheim. You might learn from this that the place of a daughter is with her mother. Lo Shagadola, Lo Shagatana, either minor or an older. That was a terrible story that they did. They wanted to, because they wanted to inherit the child.
Yes.
That's terrible. Yeah, okay. So what are you able to learn tomorrow?
Yeah, I can, but I think we should do it at 4, not after.
That's fine. That's fine with me. That's fine.